All right, so I guess we can get into what happened this past weekend. Let's start off with the big one. For the second straight week, the supposed best matchup ends in a sweep. This time, the top 10 matchup being Virginia and Miami, with Miami taking all the games in pretty dominant fashion, which was enough to move them from like the bottom half of the top 10 for most uh, polls and into the number 2 spot behind Tennessee. But it really doesn't seem like anybody wants to be in the top 5 besides Tennessee, with so many teams losing their series or getting swept in bad cases. And really, it's just a carousel each week of those teams coming through.
Yeah, absolutely crazy year in college baseball so far. It goes without saying that sweeping a team is the hardest thing to do in college baseball, and we're seeing it every week this year, especially in the top 25. Miami sweeps Virginia. They now boast a 26-6 record, 13-2 in conference. Couple close games, but for the most part, Miami was in control a majority of the weekend. Solid pitching, and the offense got a lot of energy on the offensive side of things, and they're clicking at the right time right now.
For sure. The pitching was outstanding against a Virginia team that is one of the most offensive teams in the nation. But on Friday, they only had 2 hits, which is just crazy. And the Miami pitching staff was able to limit Jake Geloff to without a single hit in the series.
Yeah, that's unbelievable in its own right there. Jake Geloff was probably the consensus Golden Spikes favorite coming into the weekend. Probably still is at this moment. And so to hold him hitless in a weekend is absolutely incredible, especially with how hot that Virginia offense was.
Yeah, I said last week that Virginia looked like the only team that could challenge Tennessee, but that has now quickly changed to potentially being Miami as that like one other top tier team that we're seeing, but we'll have to wait out and wait another week to see if that changes because everything has been recently. But right now Miami is the second hottest team besides Tennessee with 13 straight wins.
Yeah, like you said, Tennessee in a league of their own, and we're seeing people swap into these spots after them. It's really just a jumbled mess outside of that number one spot.
Yeah, where do you want to head next for recaps?
I guess we should head down to the team that was ranked 2 or 3 in a lot of polls, and that was Arkansas, but lost 2 out of 3 to Florida over the weekend, who had recently fell out of the rankings. Florida took 2 out of 3, looked impressive. This team's talented year after year, and recent history, they just haven't really put it together for the most part. I think they were the consensus number one team in the country last year, fell off, fought their way back to hosting, and so maybe this is the turning point, similar to last year, where they get back on track and potentially end up hosting again at the end of the year. Way too early to tell, but scary team if they're playing well.
Yeah, great series win by Florida, and they really needed it at this point. But it really doesn't get much easier from here on out for them with Vandy this week, who has been struggling, but then Tennessee the week after. So it's a good time for them to get hot and get that series win over Arkansas. But at the same time, I don't think Arkansas should be really too worried. They have an 8-4 record in conference. A lot of these other SEC teams that were supposed to be very good are struggling and are just finding it hard to get any wins in conference. And Arkansas has been able to consistently get a few wins a weekend this past week besides that, but they still seem to be like one of the top teams in the conference, and they can prove that this next week coming up against LSU.
Yep, like you said, good chance to prove themselves against LSU, who looks to be back on track. We'll be talking about that later, but yeah, the story for now is that Florida's back on track. Now on their resume, they have the series win over Arkansas. They also have a series win over Miami early in the year, which isn't as impressive as it would be right now, but still impressive nonetheless. They have some quality wins on that resume.
Definitely. I think we can jump over to LSU right now and do a quick little recap of what happened there. They come out and sweep Mississippi State. After winning the national championship last year, Mississippi State does not look like in any position to be even in the postseason right now. They have their work cut out ahead of them if they want to stand a chance of making it back there.
Yep. I mean, it looked like Mississippi State was going to pull out the win on Friday night, but my personal best bet came through. LSU down 1-2 in the top of the ninth with 2 outs, no runners on, scores 4 runs somehow, ends up winning the game, and ultimately sweeps the series at Duty Noble Field. That is 9 straight series wins at Duty Noble Field for LSU, which is unbelievable considering that's probably the hardest place to play in college baseball. Another note, LSU is now 6-0 when they don't make an error, which is impressive, but at the same time, you might ask yourself, how in the hell do they only have 6 games where they haven't committed an error?
Yeah, that is remarkable. I mean, but it shows that when their defense can at least be somewhat consistent and not make the bad plays, if they're making average plays, that they have a very good chance of winning the game.
Yep, definitely. I mean, when that team's clicking, one of the scariest teams in the country, and yeah, they'll have a chance to prove that playing Arkansas this weekend.
Yeah, let's move to another SEC series this past weekend. It seems like there were a lot of good series in the SEC, or at least a lot of upsets. Let's go to Vandy and Auburn, where Vandy has yet to win a good series this year, and they lost another to Auburn, 2-1. The only reason we are keeping them in our top 25, which we'll discuss later, is because of their name brand. And if they don't impress this next week, they will be on the outside looking in.
Yeah, I mean, that's been the story for Vandy is we're waiting for them to show their true colors, and like Asher said, they're only in our top 25 just for the name brand. You're betting on them because you know they have a great coach, great program. If they put it together, they're an Omaha caliber team. But right now, just struggling. And like Asher said, no quality series wins on that resume right now. And I mean, opportunities are running out as most teams only have 5 or 6 weekend series left in conference.
Yeah, I think another funny note is after Vandy rebranded their logo to their weird new gradient style logo, they have actually just been playing awful and haven't really been able to do anything. So it's funny to make that comparison of how the logo switches to how their team is actually performing.
Yeah, I think personal opinions from everyone is the logo is absolutely horrible. The star with the V in it was pretty solid, and they tried making up for it by adding a star logo with the weird V in it, but too little too late. It's a downward trend for the Commodores.
It seems like it. We can, I guess, stay in the SEC for one more series where Alabama swept Ole Miss and made them drop out of most top 25s. With Ole Miss now 3-7 in their last 10 games and a 4-8 SEC record, they really need to get some wins somewhere. And luckily, they have some average SEC teams coming up over the next few weeks, but Alabama looked like an average SEC team coming in, and they just swept them. So they really need to get going before they come up against Arkansas later down on the line.
Yeah, I mean, what a surprise for Ole Miss. It was only, 3 or 4 weeks ago they were ranked number one in the country, probably. It wasn't that long ago, and it's been a decline since. Like you said, 4-8 in conference. That's just not getting it done. In the SEC, you want to be around 500 or maybe a tad under to at least be in playoff contention. And Ole Miss can definitely get there. Ultra talented squad, but right now they're just not playing well, and they need to get things back on track.
Yeah, for sure. They have a chance, but they're going to need to start winning some games. They have one good series win so far, and that's where some polls have them ranked still is because of that, and they have one good series win, even though they have a worse record than Vandy. But besides that, it's looking rough for them so far, so they really have to get it going.
Yeah, and then on the other hand, Alabama playing well, 7-5 in SEC play so far, pretty good record, and they got another chance this weekend against Tennessee. So uh, that's the ultimate test right there. We'll see how competitive they can be. Maybe they'll be the first team in SEC play to take a game off of them.
You can hope. You can hope. All right, where do we want to go next?
Let's head back to some ACC play and
Sounds
touch
good.
on the Louisville, North Carolina situation there.
Yeah, they had a lot going on this past series. Both of Louisville's wins coming in extras, so it really could have gone either way, and North Carolina could have taken the series. With the final game getting delayed about 2 hours because of a bomb threat, and it also going 14 innings, so it ended up being around a 7 hour day for both those teams and didn't have fans for the second half after that bomb threat.
Yeah, not sure what North Carolina's travel plans were, but they obviously got shooken up by the bomb threat. 7 hour game, no way they made their flight. But yeah, fans and players were evacuated for about 2 hours. I believe they had almost 3,000 fans in attendance, but none were let back into the stadium after the threat was cleared. And then Louisville scored scored 4 runs in the bottom of the ninth to tie up the game, take it to extras to clutch up the series. But yeah, what an eventful weekend for those two teams.
Yeah, also note for the second game of the series, Louisville definitely should have won it in 9 innings, but the right fielder dropped an easy fly ball for the last out of the game, and happened to also score 2 runners and tie the game, making it go to extras. Eventually, Louisville was able to come up with the win with a walk-off home run, but you would really like to see that game ended earlier.
Yeah, Louisville around the top 10 in most rankings right now, but not making it easy for themselves. They're going to clean things up moving forward.
Yeah, for sure. All right, do we want to go to Southern Miss at Charlotte?
Sort of thing, yeah. Southern Miss is probably the top non Power Five conference or not non Power Five conference team right now. Between them and Gonzaga, Charlotte has been a solid squad the last couple of years, and they go on the road and sweep them. Couple close games, but ultimately to go in there and come out with a sweep, prove Southern Miss is a very capable team and someone to watch out for moving forward.
Yeah, good sweep. They've done well midweeks as well against Ole Miss, which I guess doesn't look as good right now, but I mean, at the time, they're still a pretty good team, and they're still in the SEC and one of the most talented teams in the nation. So, good win there. And they did what they needed to do this past week to be considered a championship contender, or at least in that kind of group.
They will certainly stay on the upper edge of our rankings and be reaching into some people's eight for Omahas.
Yep, for sure. And the last game I think we want to cover, or at least look at, is the Texas versus TCU series,
Yep. Yeah.
which,
Another good competitive series. Texas ends up taking 2 out of 3. Pretty decent performance from TCU. Kept it close, but they ended up falling out of most people's rankings. Good bounce back for Texas. They're not looking as dominant as they were early in the year, but still hanging around the top 10 in most polls and ultimately have one of the most talented squads in college baseball.
yeah, very hard fought series win for Texas. TCU gave it all they got. Pete Hansen in their Friday game looked absolutely dominant with a complete game shutout. But it was still a close series throughout the entire thing. Even that Friday game was only separated by 2 runs. So they really tried hard to keep it close, but TCU was just unable to pull out a second win.
Yep. Tough break for TCU, but got a chance to come back with a weekend series against Texas Tech. So another top 10 matchup for them and a chance to prove themselves.
Yep, definitely.